welcome everyone to the Winning Ways broadcast. I am your host, Stephannie Solomon, and we have some glitches here tonight, but I'm moving forward. And to be honest with you, I don't even know what the glitches are, but I'm going to keep moving forward. And again, welcome to the Winning Ways podcast, and I'm your host. And I'm excited tonight because I have company. I am not doing this alone. I have company tonight. But before I introduce them, I just want to set things in place for those who are new listening to this broadcast. I'm an author. I've been podcasting since 2010, November of 2010, but I've been podcasting on the audio platform. So this whole YouTube platform is fresh for me, and I'm excited about it. And it's a challenge, and I'm here for it. Okay, and so the podcast basically has me teaching from my writings, teaching from my life coach experiences, and periodically I have guests on. And so my guest tonight will be speaking on a topic that comes from my writing, and it's dealing with bullying. And for those of you who do not know, my life coach niches are family dynamics and forgiveness. And so I want to deal with the family dynamics piece tonight. And I'm hearing a little echo, so I'm not sure if that's from my guest, but I know I don't have anyone else on, but it sounds like someone else is in the room, but it shouldn't be. All right, so my guests are going to give their professional input on the topic, and we're just going to have a conversation about family bullying. If you're new to the podcast, I would like for you to press subscribe, like, and share as we move through this, and tell your friends and folks about your friends who are on here tonight and how they are making a difference with this topic. Well, my first guest is Lola Russell. And Lola, would you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
First of all, thank you so much, Stephannie, for having me here this evening. I'm extremely excited and grateful for the opportunity. Hello, everyone. My name is Lola Russell, and I am a clinical therapist. I am the founder and CEO of Inspiring and Empowering Change, which is a private practice located in Baltimore, Maryland. I provide individual therapy, couples counseling, family therapy, and group therapy, individuals as young as 4 to 65 years old. I work with clients that have a variety of diagnoses, such as depression, anxiety, ADHD, bipolar, and I work with a small percentage of clients who have psychosis. I am also the president and founder of Cultivating and Embracing Change, which is a nonprofit, mental health nonprofit program in Baltimore, Maryland. Thank you.
Awesome. And Lola has a disclaimer, and I am running it. You'll see the banner at the bottom of the screen. And Lola, will you just share that with us?
Yeah, so any information that I provide tonight is just insight education. I am not giving any advice. I cannot give any advice to anyone on this platform unless you are my client. So again, the information that I provide is insight, education, no advice. Thank you.
Awesome. And my next guest is Miss Austin, Shailene Austin. You want to tell the audience about yourself, please?
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us. And I'd like to thank you, Stephannie, for having me this evening. It's it was a surprise for me and something new for me, but I'm going to move forward, with the invitation. And I just want to say to Lola, my colleague in the field, I'm looking forward to the conversation we're going to have this evening with our lovely host. I am a career educator with 27 years in the field, 10 of those being in the classroom and 17 of those being a licensed school counselor. So I do work with students and in the school setting. I do not have a clinical license to do outside therapy, but of course we work together. So I, as a school counselor, would work with someone like Lola to refer students out as needed. So we kind of work together as a team. My job is to make sure that students are well in the school setting. We kind of provide triage and making sure that we can help students in that given moment with what they need so that we can, get them to class, we get them to function throughout the day. And so currently I'm working with high school students, but I do have extensive background with all grade levels, K through 12.
Awesome. And I believe you have a disclaimer also. And I'm running
Yes.
that
So, yes. Thank you. So, as a school counselor, of course, I am just sharing my knowledge and my expertise of having been a school counselor over the years. I cannot provide any professional advice to anyone listening. It's merely for the benefit of self-help. Uh, Anything I say, of course, does not represent a particular school system or the school system I'm employed by, but this is a means of just reflecting on oneself, maybe reflecting on family dynamics, just, another resource to help those who are interested in hearing about this topic.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, we're going to get right to the topic. And listeners, if you have comments or questions, please feel free. Don't be shy. Your face is not being seen here at all, but you can just type in your comments and we can share them if they are appropriate. Well, ladies, the topic is family bullying. And it's for some, this seems like the two words don't even go together, because when we normally hear the word bullying, we think of a child. We think of an environment outside of the home, particularly school. The media tends to show us bullying on TV or in, comic books, whatever. We see a bully as a child, and we see a bully like a neighborhood bully or a child bully at school or something that happens at the playground. Just give us a definition of the word, and we're going to build from there. So at any point, either one of you can just give us maybe the definition as you know it to be of what a bully is.
Should I go, or would you like to go?
Okay.
So I was going to say unwanted, hostile, aggressive behavior towards someone else. It could be verbal or physical.
Okay.
And so I would add that it is, like Lola said, it's hostile, it's aggressive, it's intentional. You are purposely trying to cause someone discomfort, physically, emotionally, mentally. This could be done via teasing, name calling. It's such a multi-layered word.
Wow, multi-layered word. Okay, so from what you're telling me then, a bully can be anyone. Doesn't necessarily have to be a child.
Absolutely.
That's absolutely correct. Absolutely.
You can.
So, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was going to say bullies are at work. Bullies are at school. Bullies are in the family, as you stated. Bullies can be in any setting. So it's not just specific to, as you stated, what sometimes the media portrays in the school setting. A bully can be in any setting, and it could be any person. It could be your supervisor. It could be your significant other. So I just wanted to add that.
So then, go ahead, Shailene.
Any contexts in which humans interact with one another, there can be instances of bullying.
Wow. So let's think of the family then. So with those characteristics and different environments, that means anyone can be a bully. So when we think of the family, which is supposed to be a close-knit, loving unit, how do we get bullies there? What dynamics or what habits, what cycles could possibly contribute to someone being a bully? That being the parent, a sibling, um, the caregiver who could be a relative. What is it do you think could contribute to an adult being a bully to a child?
Power and control in some cases.
Mhm.
Hmm. Well, I would think that if you're the adult, you would think that you already have the power. So,
Not if
what
you're
do
in,
you,
not if you exhibit, sometimes insecurity. You have to find
Mhm.
other ways to pretty much exert your power and your control. And so you may do that in a negative way, such as bullying.
wow. Wow. So I would think so from what you're telling me, I'm looking at it from this lens that if an adult feels that he or she has to show power or control, they obviously don't believe that they have it.
And again, as it pertains to bullying. So,
Mhm.
just to clarify, with power and control, you can have power and control, you can exert it, but you want to do it in a positive way, not in a way that is perceived as bullying or that is bullying.
Mhm. How then would a child, because I know before I retired, bullying was it was really a big deal. It was in teaching, it was really a big deal. Um, we had, hold on a second, what just happened to my picture? Okay, it's crazy. All right, so children kind of see bullies as one another, but they also
Mhm.
see it as being mean, or they see it as being teased. Are those borderline or are they inclusive to bullying, teasing someone, um, being harsh?
I think for what I've seen in my time as a school counselor and why students bully, they bully for various reasons. Let's say for some of them, it's the peer pressure. For some students, it's the power. Power is always in the works with bullying. It's for popularity. It could be for payback. And again, it's, especially with high school students, it may start out as teasing, but then when it becomes, repetitive, and teasing by any means is not acceptable, at all. It starts off with teasing, and then it can escalate to more of, threatening someone in the bathroom, in the restroom. So usually it becomes escalation over a period of time. This could be one-on-one. This could be in a group form. I know that especially over the years, we've added on the cyberbullying to the mix, where students
Mhm.
are now teasing each other on social media, um, ganging up on other, students, sending videos, inappropriate videos. So it just manifests in different ways at the school level. Um, we can look at who we consider a bully in school, but when you look back, and I don't want to say that naturally these students have had hard lives, but there tend to be some underlying, from what I've seen, some similarities. Maybe there was a parent who bullied. Throughout their childhood. Maybe it's coming from some low self-esteem issues. So if I focus on you, I can distract from my shortcomings. So
Mm.
various things that can go into reasons why on the school side a student, would bully.
Mhm, mhm. As I'm listening to this, and I heard you the teasing piece, is teasing ever positive? Can it be positive?
Hmm, I would say, in my opinion, I say no more so, more so than yes. Like I said, because I think with teasing, you walk a fine line with teasing. What is what is too much teasing? When does it become so damaging to a point where a student feels such low self-esteem, they don't feel worthy, they don't even want to be in front of others anymore, they don't want to come to school. Now it becomes school refusal. I don't think in any terms, me as a, school counselor, I would just say all around it is inappropriate, even though we're probably of age on here to say, oh, back in the day, everyone got teased and we kind of just took it and we did what we had to do and life just kept moving. But, unfortunately, that is not the type of world that we're seeing now.
And that's funny you mentioned the back in the day thing, because that's what I hear often, especially on television. It's when we were young, people would tease you, would take it, you would suck it up, blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, we were still human back then. Did people really suck it up? Or did they just realize I don't have anyone I can take this to, because teasing was just so acceptable. So you mentioned something also. I heard you mention about the self-esteem piece. You both of you gave the definitions, which I've heard, and I think many people have heard. Yet I think there's a look to it, because we can say this is what they have or whatever. There's a look to it. You mentioned low self-esteem. How does low self-esteem, which we normally have a picture in our heads of someone maybe holding their head down, their shoulders aren't squared, they're rounded, they're humped back or whatever. But we don't see bullies looking like that. We don't tend to see that. So what really is the face of or the look of low self-esteem that will make someone be a bully? Because it makes me question, what is this low self-esteem is a characteristic of it? What does it really look like,
So I think a lot of times bullies try to fit in, they try to become, accepted by others. And you're absolutely right. When we think of someone who has a low self-esteem, we don't see someone who's confident, someone who has a lot of friends. But oftentimes with bullies, again, they want to be accepted. And it's the cool thing to tease someone. It's the cool thing to be condescending. It's the cool thing to be degrading. So I think, that's the distinguishing difference between what we know or what we see as someone having a low self-esteem to what a bully looks like with a low self-esteem. The bully has to kind of put on a facade of, he or she is good, right? Because again, it's all about being accepted. But when you have a low self-esteem, first of all, it's unhealthy. You can't identify anything positive within another person. So you're always identifying the negatives. Again, the teasing is an example. So that would kind of be my feedback on that particular question.
I really like that part about not being able to identify a positive about a person. When I taught middle schoolers in particular, I mean, they believe in shooting the dozens, your mama jokes, and you wore those clothes just last week, they're the same tennis shoes you wore with that certain outfit, And I said, if you're going to say something to someone, they're on your mind, then why not say good morning? Why not say have a great day today? And they just kind of looked at me like, what? I'm saying, yeah, they must be on your mind because you're talking about them. So if you're going to choose to talk about them, and I mean, it just took their heads in a totally different place. And I said, because, what you're doing, I didn't use the word degrading or condescending. I basically said, you have no good in your heart for this person, because everything you're saying is meant to hurt them.
And I also want to add, bullying is, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Bullying is a learned behavior. That's all I wanted to say.
Oh my goodness. So where in the world do you think a child would learn that? Remember, we don't come into the world knowing anything. Maybe that's to suck, and that's a natural reef,
So it could be the home environment, the school environment. It could be a variety of environments where because children emulate behaviors from others. So, it can be any environment in which they're in.
Wow. That is
Absolutely agree. If you've come up in a home with a parent who feels, I'm just going to give you an example, it's okay to yell at the server, in a
Mhm.
restaurant because you didn't bring my food fast enough, or it's okay for me to, to attack people out in public, and the kid is seeing this, or better yet, it's okay for mom to attack auntie behind closed doors and embarrass her. It can come from the home life. I'm just trying to be cool, as Lola mentioned, and fit in with students at school. So therefore, I'm being told, hey, I need you to go do this, go film her and go put that on social media, just to be a part, just to be recognized, just to fit in. But it can come from various places.
Yeah, and it just seems like the cool thing is to be mean, and I don't know where that has come from. I'm sure it came from somewhere because it is pervasive. We heard the movie Mean Girls and whatever, but it's like the cool thing is to be mean, as if there's a power in being mean. And I think what you said earlier, Lola, about the whole power thing. As we're building this, I'm hearing that. There's power in being mean. It's in and being mean is verbal. I think it's oftentimes we think of a bully as being a physical,
Mhm.
aggressive person. But the tongue is extremely harsh. The things that children say to each other. But now that we see all of that with children, and you said something interesting, you said it's learned behavior,
Mhm.
which means that when children, all of us, are born into this world, we know nothing about the word bullying, the characteristic of it. So when we are in a home and the adults are bullying, you mentioned something about the mother and the aunt.
Mhm.
A child watching the dynamics, the interaction, the ongoings of that, or a husband and wife, boyfriend, girlfriend,
Mhm.
significant other, how they relate, their communication skills, are harsh. All of these things are unhealthy, but who knows the difference between what's healthy and unhealthy if that's all you know?
Mhm.
You know?
Absolutely.
hmm
Yeah,
I mean, I agree.
hmm
I'm sorry. Yeah. So when we see the dynamics in the home with the adults acting out in such a way of unhealthiness, and a child knows no better and
Mhm.
wonders why he or she is being reprimanded at school or pointed out for doing something wrong. Let's think about the impact of all of this. Let's say you are a child and you've been brought up in a home where it is commonplace for the adults to be condescending to each other, to talk
Mhm.
about their choice maybe of a mate, to talk about their children, to talk about their past, and children see the adults acting this way. What's the
Mhm.
impact, not just for the children who are observing this, and we know that sometimes if you become what you see, but what's
Mhm.
the impact for the family unit going forward in generations to come?
Yeah. I think it's taking unhealthy behaviors into adult relationships and causing unhealthy, more unhealthy relationships. Like you said, it's generational. I once worked with a young lady, and I remember her saying to me, because she was having some um, issues with, we call it the significant other in school, because of course in high school they're just so in love with one another. And you know she mentioned something to me, and she said, this morning, Miss Austin, my boyfriend told me that I'm always getting smart with him and I'm putting him down. And, she used the word condescending. He thinks I'm just so condescending. And so he just says, I have a slick mouth and I need to watch my mouth. And so I really, I think at first when she first heard it, it kind of took her aback, because I think one of the questions we discussed, or, it always comes around with teenagers. You have to be very direct. And I said, well, what did you say? Were you? And then she starts going into things, and she could hear herself repeating what she said that morning. And she said, oh my gosh, I sound like my mom.
Mm.
She goes, I sound like my mom talking to my dad, when she's talking to her dad.
Wow.
She's like, mom talks to dad this way. She's like, and I guess I just never realized, how much that can possibly have an effect on me. So I do think, you do have and I'm not going to say everyone who comes, like I said, from a family dynamic where, there was a unhealthy relationship with parents, they take the same behaviors, but, there are occasions where you move that on and you develop unhealthy relationships in life.
I like what. Go ahead, Lola. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
It sounds like the young lady self-corrected. She caught herself and she understood, and it sounded like from the way you said she responded, she wasn't pleased that she sounded like her mom.
Right, because it involves a lot of reflection. When you're working with someone and you have them, reflect. I think self-reflection to self-recognize and self-reflect and then realize, oh my goodness, come to that realization. That's the strongest. That is such a strong thing versus me pointing it out to you. If you can get to a point where you notice this in yourself and you're like, wow, how did I get to this point? And she just had that aha moment when she was working with me. And so she self-corrected, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I want to say, that if you, I think people don't naturally see themselves as bullies, but if you get to a point where you realize you have some of these behaviors, you can always self-correct and you can always work on yourself. So I try to make it a point, not to judge, because behaviors can change. You can work on yourself. You can correct some of these, or make better choices, should I say, to overcome some of these behaviors.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to add, when you ask the question about the implications of bullying, I think about from a clinical stance, bullying can cause someone the victim to have a low self-esteem. It can cause anxiety, depression. It can cause someone to isolate. And, as we heard across the world, that unfortunately kids are taking their lives because of bullying. So bullying is really, really, really serious. So I just wanted to add that. In terms of individuals exhibiting the traits of a bully, the best thing that you can do is seek professional help. If you're not able to change the behavior on your own, because it's something that was learned in the family, or you learned at school, or you learned at work, but you realize, I want to make a change, but you don't know where to start to make that change, seek professional help. Sign up for a therapist. That's the best thing you can do, and have the therapist help you identify strategies that you can use to change this behavior, to form more healthier relationships. You may notice a pattern in friendships and just significant relationships. They're always going in the same direction. And sometimes it's not always the other person. Sometimes it's you because of your own trauma. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Yes, perfect. Because I was going to say too, I always tell people, when you get to a point where you're confused, you don't know where to start, it is always best to seek some professional help and not be embarrassed about it. And I know in our community, I just want to say the African American community, in general, we're a little embarrassed about seeking, assistance with some of the issues we're dealing with. We're just kind of like, no, what happens in the house stays in the house. I don't need anyone in our, I don't need anyone in our business. They can't tell me what to do. The biggest line is, I'm gonna pray about it and just leave it alone. Well, I feel like, God gives us individuals who are licensed, who have that insight, people you can go to seek the professional help. And then, of course, on the other side, as the professionals who help, we know our scope too. I know my limitations when I'm working with a student or individual, and I know when it's time for me to send them on to someone, with a little more in-depth, training. But I, definitely seek some support and speak about it. I mean, because that's the first thing, is having to speak about it and reach out. And it is embarrassing to to have to say, man, maybe I have been behaving this way. But again, I always kind of feel like change is never too late, whether you're 10 or whether you're 100.
I like that the part you said a lot. Suffering in silence, I think, is a contributor of the depression, anxiety, and sadly suicide.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because how much can the heart, the body, the mind endure? You know, and when you feel in isolation and that no one will understand, or I better not tell, you know, you better not tell,
Mm-hmm.
because that was even that the consequences are worse. And you're right. And but I don't know about any other community, but I do know in the African American community, I've heard this saying, you know, what happens in this house or what goes on in this house stays in this house. So wait a minute, you get a neck wiggle, head wobble, and maybe a hand on the hip with that one, and that right there is threatening.
Mm-hmm.
You know, personally, when I reflect on that, that's bullying. What goes on in this house stays in this house. Now, it's not like the person said it like this, because that gets to how things are said that can
Mm-hmm.
be interpreted as bullying. What goes on in this house stays in this house.
Stays in this house. And
That's
it could
very, that's very different from
yeah.
what goes on in this house stays in this house. There is energy with that that is intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think that how things are said as well as what is said contribute to the madness, because I personally think family bullying is madness. I really do, because the family is supposed to be a unit of support, loving support, celebration of each other, a place of strength, a safety net. It's supposed to be a safe
Safety
space.
net. Mm-hmm.
And you know, when we think of safety, it's not always the roof over your head, because you know we've heard that too. I put a roof over your head and food in your belly and clothes on your back. Well, that is not all there is to making someone feel safe and loved. And if the home is not safe, and I guess it alludes to what you said, you start to have like a survival
Mm-hmm.
mechanism. So if this is the place I must go to rest my head and to eat and to get a change of clothes, I got to come up with some survival skills. So let's talk about those survival skills. What might a person do? Not just a child, but an adult. You've been raised in this environment. You know that there's a family member or two, because they can like energy joins. They just
Mm-hmm.
find each other. And you know that when we get together, they are always going to do the put downs. They're always going to find something to say. But if I don't show up, that's going to be a bad thing too. So you're going with your stomach shaking and your migraine headache,
Mm-hmm.
but you're going anyway.
That's a rough place to be. You know, I can't imagine saying to yourself, you know, my family is supposed to have my back and they're supposed to be here for me, but yet you're going to, you know, you're living in a situation where you're being shunned. Family shunning is a very, very big thing, you know, when it comes to toxicity, you know, in a family, shunning a certain family member, or you know, manipulation. What else do I want to say? Ignoring someone, or I'll say there's that in-law who, you know, critique. Well, I say criticize because critique, I think it's a little critique is the word when you want to, you know, you want to offer some positivity there. But let's just say the flip side of, you know, in-law comes to the house, and every time, you know, in-law comes to the house, or let's say mother-in-law, she's talking about your parenting skills. your cooking, or your, the way you interact with, her son, who therefore is your husband. I kind of see that as a way of bullying, or I see that as bullying. I don't know what everyone else thinks, but I do think being afraid to have your in-law over because you feel so put down every time they come over. I would say, ways to combat that. I do think that it is okay to practice responses to yourself. So I say that if if you are getting this type of behavior, practicing responses, practicing what you're going to say, how you're going to stand firm without being hostile and without matching that energy match for match. I don't want to exhibit the same type of energy. I want to come in a calmer manner. That might require you to practice some of your responses. Definitely, I always say I messages, because then it kind of, the other person is probably less defensive with you. And I give the example of the mother-in-law. If I'm the daughter-in-law who feels so put down, week after week, because she's coming over talking about my parenting skills. Look, I prefer to raise my children this way. This is how I see fit to raise my children, with these type of values, etc. And I would appreciate you, respecting that. But taking a firm stance without matching that energy. That's one way.
I'm going to come back. I'm going to take a quick break. And Lola, I think you wanted to jump in and add something to that. Hey, listeners, you're jumping in. I see you. Hit the subscribe button. Let us know what you think about all of this. Okay, I'll be right back. We'll be right back right after this.
Get Aging with Grace by Christian author, speaker, and podcast host Stephannie Solomon today on all digital and brick-and-mortar retail stores. For signed copies, purchase your books at www.stephaniebooks.com. That's www.stephaniebooks.com. Connect with this creative author on Instagram, Twitter, Google, and Facebook using her handle @Stephannie Books. That's @STEPHANNIE Books. Here's Stephannie Solomon on The Winning Ways Show, Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, a weekly podcast on blogtalkradio.com. Aging with Grace and other publications by Stephannie Solomon are available at Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, Books A Million, and other booksellers. For further information and speaking inquiries, log on to www.stephaniebooks.com. That's www.stephaniebooks.com.
Welcome back, listeners. And like the commercial said, if you're looking for any of those publications in any brick and mortar bookstore, and if for some reason it's not on the shelf, the book that you're looking for, request it and it will be delivered to you. Or you can go to www.stephaniebooks.com for a signed copy. Well, before the break, we were talking about implications of family bullying, and I believe Lola, you wanted to piggyback off of some things that Shilling mentioned.
Yes, absolutely. So one thing I wanted to say is know the person, the behavior. So normally the person, the bully, will have a pattern of the same behavior. So it was discussed that, if you're at a family dinner, or if you're at a family gathering, or if you're at just your in-laws' house, you can almost expect they're going to bully you or say something that's negative or criticize you. You can almost expect it. That may help. And I would definitely agree with the point of practicing what you can say to combat what the bully has said to bring you down. I would say that sometimes it's hard to ignore bullying. Sometimes we tell kids, oh, just ignore him, ignore her, or even we tell adults. The best thing that you can do also is just work on yourself, your self-esteem, your self-confidence, because when you have a high self-esteem and a high self-confidence, doesn't matter what anyone says to you, you're not going to believe it. So I just wanted to add that point. Thank you.
Right. Well, I like that. You're not going to believe it. But isn't it something that the bully is a bully because he or she has low self-esteem? And then that is just projected onto a target. And then that target can develop low self-esteem. That is just amazing. You know, how
And
that
I will
energy,
also, Mhm.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's just amazing how that energy is not embraced, but it just attaches itself. And like you said, Lola, if the person doesn't have um, the if they don't have a high esteem of themselves, and if they don't have a great support system at home or school, if someone's telling them, "Oh, ignore it," like you said, you know, um, I can't see how that can work. You know, you're going to eventually develop some second guessing about yourself, self doubt, and start wondering, what am I doing wrong? Why are they picking on me? I think that correct me if I'm wrong, because you guys have the clinical expertise or professional expertise here, but I would think that when a person gets to the point of suicide because of bullying, it's because at some point they believe it, that something must be wrong with me.
I think for me, I kind of say it. So when you look at the effects of of bullying, what can happen, and like we said, developing low self-esteem, um, feeling just broken down each time you interact with this person, and I'm thinking more so in long term. We someone can develop depression, and then the depression just sitting there and building and becoming intensified. I think that pushes someone, or can push someone, to the point where they do want to self-harm, and they do want to take their life. And I wish we could tell people when they get to that point that it's really not so much about what's going on with you as a person being bullied, more so with the person who is doing the bullying. And I think that we say, oh, they're being picked on because they look a certain way, or maybe they have unique qualities. Absolutely, really just doesn't have anything to do with the person being bullied. But of course, you don't, the person being bullied does not feel that way, because they feel, like you said, there must be something wrong with me, to have to to attract this type of negative behavior.
Mhm.
Absolutely not true.
Wow. Wow. What would you say to a person who's been accused of bullying and they deny? They say, well, I'm surprised. Let's say you're talking to a parent. I want to kind of focus on the adults. And you tell them, that someone says that you're mean and you're always attacking or whatever. How would you tell them that, if this is true, what they're doing, the impact of it? How would you convey to them the negative impact? Because sometimes people aren't aware that they're doing it. Some people are, but I give people the benefit of the doubt sometimes. Some people are not aware. I will testify myself. I was teaching a young lady, Hispanic, and I have to say she's Hispanic because that's going to help you with the evolution of what I'm saying. She actually went to the counselor and said that she thought I was bullying her, and I thought initially, you got to be kidding me, because first of all, I'm thinking bullying is only something we deal with kids. So why would a child go and tell an adult that I'm bullying her? And of course, then she said I was racist. She said I was being racist forever. But I'll never forget how, when I talked with the counselor about it, the whole thing of the racism and feeling, she felt that I was stepping out as an adult and using power against her, and she felt that coming into this country, already the country was against her, and I was definitely showing that. And I just thought that was, I had to look at it from her lens, and sit back and say, and not just be stuck in what I thought bullying was. something relatable that with children only. But this child actually said she felt, and I had to step back, think about what I said, how I said it. And she just wasn't used to um, the, the strictness, the regiment, and how everything was expected, of course, and I had to figure out a way to still have those expectations from her, but understand that her perception of how it was being presented to her should be altered. And I think as adults, when we hear bullying, we just really put that on the children. With this young lady, she put that out on me. You're an adult, and I'm thinking, how can that be? I'm an adult. I don't bully anybody. I have something here. Victoria Queen says, I believe some bullying is a defense block for themselves. Oh my God. What do you say to that, ladies? Hello?
I'm here.
Could you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, everything got quiet and looked like it froze. Victoria says she believes it's a defense block. What do you say to that? Hello?
I'm here. I'm just thinking of, defense block. I'm wondering if she's asking the question about.
She just made a statement. She just made a statement.
She made a statement. Oh, okay. Okay. Well,
do you believe it's a defense mechanism that bullies have?
I guess it's the way you view it. If you're a bully and you're just like, okay, well, let me get to others before they get to me. I want to go ahead and mention my shortcomings, so no one else brings it up to me. I think that, you could say that, you're using that to protect yourself, versus having to deal with being attacked by others. Let me just go ahead and say this about myself now, and then maybe it will take, the heat off of me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm looking at something that that was written here. It says, I absolutely agree that tone is a biggie. I have to become humble and allow my spirit to guide me, especially when I have to confront my nephew, because I can be loud and bold, and that doesn't fly well with him. So if I want to get my point across, I have to go at him with kid gloves, because if I don't, it becomes a shouting match. Wow, how familiar is that?
And I wanted to add something. You had asked, how do we help like an adult, like a parent, identify that someone has said that, she or he is a bully. So again, from a clinical perspective, I would ask, what are your communication styles or your patterns of communication? Remember, I mentioned before that bullying is a learned behavior. So if this parent in her or his household, he or she was bullied when he or she was younger, then that's the behavior that he or she knows as an adult, as a parent. And so for me, I would approach it in that manner, just getting a better understanding of how is communication in the home environment, especially when a point is trying to be made. When the kids are not listening or when the significant other is not paying attention, how do you get that person's attention? Is it yelling? Is it screaming? Is it throwing items? So by having that conversation, and also when you can hear yourself out loud, sometimes that brings self-awareness too. And then giving that person other ways to communicate, getting a point across. So that would be one way that I would approach that.
Yeah, I like that. The whole communication skills. I think that's something that we are forever learning to do, because we continue to encounter different personalities. Even in our workplace as adults, we continue to meet people, and people's learning styles or communication styles are different. And we have to evolve, not so much to meet or match another person, but to communicate in a way where there's conflict avoidance and at all costs as much as possible. I like what the Bible says. The Bible says, as much as possible as it depends on you, be at peace with all men, which means that there will be times you can't have it. It's just some people are just not embracing of peace. But for those who want to have a healthy life of their own, I think that we are constantly looking for a way, not just to avoid conversations with people, but to avoid the drama, to avoid the unhealthy, because it does wreak havoc on us, um, physically, psychologically. And I think it creates, like this young lady said, building barriers. I think it also starts, if we're not careful, we don't discern who, who doesn't just, well, no one deserves to be yelled at or whatever, but we don't discern after a while that there's some people who have our back and best interest. We start being suspicious. And that's what I think when we're bullied like that, especially as an adult. And if you've been bullied as a child in your home, and that's how your family is, your family has that dynamic. If we're not careful, we start to think that everybody's like that.
And so, the saying, you can choose your friends, but you can't really pick your family. Your family is going to be around so many different personalities. I mean, when I just think of the grand scheme of things, I just say with family dynamics, protect yourself emotionally. Make it a habit to protect yourself emotionally, and do whatever you need to do within that family unit to protect yourself, along with still trying to build positive relationships. And if that means creating boundaries with certain individuals, or not to be at every single cookout every weekend, you might need that time to just disconnect, and protect yourself emotionally, but definitely create boundaries, because who does want to live a stressful life? Who wants the stress that creates physical illness? Because we internalize that, and next thing you know, our blood pressure is up and we're in the hospital being treated.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I like what you said about the boundary setting. We're never too old to learn how to be the best friend to ourselves, and to be good for us. Listeners, you'll see the little ticker going by. It's just basically the disclaimer that we talked about earlier, that represents Miss Austin as well as Miss Russell. The toxic, I'm not sure who mentioned it. You talked about toxicity, but I believe there's a thing like toxic loyalty. When we talk about the family dynamics, you have people, it's just so toxic. Sometimes you don't even know that it's toxic until you get out and you see how some other people live. And you realize everybody don't live like this. Some people might, some things are common in certain homes, but everybody don't live like this, doesn't live like this. And it's difficult. You talked about the boundary setting. You talked about not attending, not showing up for everything. But there's loyalty there too. And that's hard to break from, especially when you are aware that things are going awry. When we think about, I know when we were teaching a bully unit in school, there was, I think it's called the bystander. It's the person they're not doing the verbal or physical abuse, but they are part of a group or a mob or a crowd that stands around and they watch the abuse. They watch the target get bullied. And I think they're called the bystander. And in that unit, we as teachers taught that the bystander is just as guilty as the perpetrator. And so in families, there are bystanders. There are people who are aware that this is wrong. They may not call it toxic, but it is. They may not call it unhealthy. They may not call it dysfunctional, but it is dysfunctional because the family is supposed to be about help and support. But there are people who will show their loyalty to the bully for the sake of quote unquote family, because family is together. No matter, even if we dysfunctional, we together. How unhealthy is that? You know, we're together. We do everything together. Even when we meet, there's always drama. But we're together. You know, I'm loyal.
I've definitely seen that, you know, in my lifetime. I've definitely been in some places, and that is so true, where you know, the toxic loyalty. And I know that you and I have spoken about this on more than one occasion. You know, some people it's so ingrained. You know, family dynamics are so different. You know, you get those families where you know, we are that power family. We get what we want by stepping on others. We do what we need to do, and you know, we get what we want in life, and it's our way. And if that means we have to hurt other people in the process, it is what it is. And then, you know, kids are brought up in that family dynamic, thinking that this is the way it is. And then you have those families who are more on the caring and loving side. I mean, I think we underestimate how much of families, how can I say, how they interact with one another really impresses upon other people in, you know, in the family, how they should behave in certain situations. I've actually seen some families where certain people are not allowed to talk at all. You know, it's what certain individuals say, and that's it. And this is how we're going to run it. And I'm thinking, my gosh, you know, these are adults. And I'm talking to adults who are like, I don't have a say so at the table. I'm there, and whatever such and such says, that's it. And no matter how wrong or dysfunctional I think it is, you know, you're going to be shunned if you choose to go against the family and say, oh, no, I want to do the right thing.
And I want to protect this person.
Yes.
I want to protect this person, but if I protect this person, then I get the wrath, right? Or, you know, I get what he or she is getting,
right?
Toxic loyalty, knowing better and not doing it.
And then the manipulation comes in. You know, if you help this person or you do this and you go against us, we'll cut you out of our will, or we'll, you know, we'll take this away from you. So then, you know, then it's always something.
Yeah, that's toxic loyalty is real. And I like how you gave different examples of that. It is very real. It comes in different forms. I can't imagine the stress, because I can't imagine living life like that, and even trying to pick a mate, because that means that the mate that you pick has to be accepted by that group, because they're going to be subject, you know. So you have to pick someone probably who you really don't love, but will fit in the scheme of things of getting along, you know, what they say, going along to get along, or something like that. Mm-hmm. You know, that has to be a really sorrowful way to live and exist.
Yeah.
It really has. We can talk more about this because the implications, they just stem and go out so far. It just seems like, in concluding this, though, it gets to, hopefully one would get to a place as an adult to make some decisions, which could mean, like you said, we're not responsible for the units that we're born into, but we can pick, our own families, and those families, as we get older, could consist of friends who become family, people who have support without an agenda, who give without, oh, you got to do for me forever and keep a record of it. But the support and the celebration is just what they do. And I think that it's awkward for people who have been bullied in their lives and not been celebrated sometimes to even receive that. And that's what I think people ought to be careful of too. You don't want to grow up and miss out on the opposite, the converse of what you've been living, you know. and to understand that there's another way. It won't be perfect, but it's another way. Well, ladies, this has been great. Um, Mental health awareness is next month, everyone, and I am looking forward to continually talking about um, mental health matters, especially in the African American community. This broadcast is seen by anyone and everyone, but I really have a passion about the whole mental health piece because um, we are seeing um, the ramifications, the consequences of not being seen by professionals and talking things out, or talking to the wrong people. We're living in an age where mental health issues, there's a spectrum. And I think people need to understand that mental health is not always like, one flew over the cuckoo nest or whatever. You know, it's not about someone being strapped in and bugging out. It could be someone who's functioning very well on their job. But when they go home, they drink themselves silly, or they self-medicate in some way because the stresses, the anxiety of the workplace. Maybe they're being sexually harassed. You know, again, that's a whole nother episode, because when I was sexually harassed, I didn't even know it was sexual harassment. I just knew what this person was doing was inappropriate, and I was so timid and afraid I didn't know what to say. But it is, mental health is a big deal, folks. It really is. And next month, I'm looking forward to having five individuals on who can talk out some things, hopefully that it'll spark something in somebody to want to take the step to get some assistance. Understand that life coaches and clinicians, therapists, counselors are not the same. As a life coach, I've said this before, and I put up the ticker, and I'll do it again. But life coaches, we are not regulated. Oh, no, we're not. We are not regulated. And to be a life coach, you should be certified, I believe. Not everyone is, but we are not certified like therapists and counselors and psychiatrists, okay? I believe that a person can have a therapist and a life coach, and that is great. It is great. I commend anyone who reaches out to the mental health community to get assistance so that you don't find yourself in a rabbit hole and a dark place. Lola has a facility, a nice facility. And Lola, will you share briefly about your facility and the services that you offer for anyone who may be listening and looking for a place to go to just talk out some things?
So I am located on York Road. Currently, I'm not accepting any new clients. However, there's a few websites that I want to throw out: Psychology Today, Therapy for Black Girls, Good Therapy, and Therapy Tribe. Those are the websites that I would recommend for individuals to search for therapists in your area. I know a lot of therapists are still accepting clients or seeing clients virtually. When you go to those websites, you're able to actually view the therapist profile, see what type of insurance he or she accepts, and if he or she is in your area. You can actually put in the zip code.
Awesome. Absolutely awesome. And that has been a big thing too, people saying that, oh, they're not accepting insurance, but there are places out there.
Yeah. And I just want to mention something too, Stephannie, because we don't want the financial part to be a barrier to seeking assistance with mental health. And so, a lot of time I think people feel like, I don't have insurance, I can't see anyone, I have to deal with this on my own. But a lot of places do have sliding scales, especially community-based organizations. I know we have a few here in my area in Virginia where it's based off your income. That may be a $5 visit, $10 visit based on, what your income can allow. So I don't want anyone to think that, you have to have the insurance to seek the mental health services you need. You, if you need it, then like I said, you go out there and you search for it, and there will be a place. Now granted, it has been a little full since the pandemic, but do not let the financial part hinder you.
Amen. Amen. Ladies, and I was sorors, plural. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You have been extremely helpful. I really want to have you back again. So be on the lookout. But this has been wonderful, a great conversation, one that does not end tonight, one that is just a continuum. And so, ladies, I just say thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Thank you all for listening in. I hope that this conversation tonight was a blessing to you. Well, tonight has been great, and hit that subscribe button, everybody. All right, press like and share. Lord willing, I'll be back here next Monday, same time, doing the same thing. Take care, everybody.